Out of the 7 demon peers who currently existed, Veyron was the second most powerful. He had achieved the rank of Duke, having been undefeated for over 4,000 years. Despite this, though, he was now on the floor, humiliated by Marco, standing before him in the guise of a warrior. Marco's unique skill adapter allowed him to mimic the appearance of Kondo, and he combined that with consummate usage of the ultimate enchantment alternate to give himself Kondo-level abilities. Nothing went to waste in his approach, and while Veyron was a titan, Marco was one step above him. Only because of Veyron's own great experience was he merely brought to his knees instead of killed outright. All of his combat skills, honed over many years of demondom, seemed to do nothing. It was a vaguely frightening reality to face, but Veyron had no fear. If anything, he was enjoying this situation, deep down. Of course he did. After all, he had declared in front of his master Ultima and all the officers that he could win. Thus, he must. Demon. Your name is Veyron. Well, I congratulate you on your excellent attempt, but there is no use in trying this over and over again. I have seen what you're capable of well enough, and it is within my ability to handle it. I am sure it is. And your assessment is correct, for I have not shown my own true potential yet. What? Marco was about to recommend he surrender. Veyron's reaction gave him second thoughts. In his view, there existed an ability gap between himself and Veyron that could be described as heaven and earth. Kondo's strength was proving overwhelming to the demon, after all, but to Marco right now, that functioned as his own strength. That's why Veyron's words angered him so much. Here he was, a demon peer, but his magicule count was under a quarter of his. Things were a bit trickier before since that wasn't a one-on-one duel, but right now Veyron was alone. Nobody was swooping in to interfere, which gave Marco an overwhelming advantage. Still, Veyron stood up and laughed. Offering me an impersonation of someone else will not beat me. It is that type of mimicry, after all, that I'm good at. Huh? What do you mean? A counterfeit can never approach the real thing. You understand that to be the truth, do you not? What do you mean? Marco asked, a tad agitated. Veyron had a little internal laugh at this, wishing he could just slash away instead of having this chat. Well, let me tell you. The thing I consider to be the best possible work of art. And as he shouted this, Veyron activated his newfound skill. Veyron was Ultima's butler. He had served her for a very long time, entrusted with all of her personal care, and it was his job to deal with whatever his master asked of him. The more specialized field of cooking was left to Zonda, but everything else was in Veyron's domain. Along those lines, he had developed a unique skill known as imitator that allowed him to become whoever he wanted. With imitator, Veyron could turn into anyone he caught sight of, very similar to Marco's adapter, but imitator was a more precise ability. However, Marco's skill was now enhanced by the borrowed power of Emperor Lidor. Keeping that in mind, Veyron didn't have a chance. It didn't even need to be said. Why? Because what Veyron was imitating was far stronger than the Kondo that Marco was adapting. Marco could reproduce something below 80% of Kondo's actual strength. As someone with a similar skill, Veyron knew it was impossible to recreate someone who was far stronger than you. But he still decided to turn himself into the demon Lord Rimuru, a supernatural being who had successfully charmed even his master. Doing that, he hoped, would give him at least a bit of that power for himself. But then Veyron heard a voice. I cannot allow you to do that. Instead, I will give you another power. The voice was something akin to the world language. It puzzled Veyron at first, but once he understood the meaning of its message, he was almost moved to tears. Ah yes, I too am being watched over with that love. Veyron offered his thanks, as if praying to a god. Then he realized that his skill had evolved. Even if it was counterfeit, an imitation, it could still be art if it truly moved people, and, as if to prove that, he could certainly feel something new within him. The ultimate gift artist. And with that, he was convinced he could defeat Marco. Now Marco was confronted by a young warrior with keen, sharpened eyes. Who are you? No, wait, I don't care. I don't know any swordsman better than Lieutenant Kondo. You are free to copy anyone you like, but you still don't stand a chance. The young warrior Veyron imitated looked quite a bit like a Jera, which makes sense, because it was Byakuya Araki from his younger days. It was the very epitome, the ultimate in imitation on Veyron's part. I suppose, he thought, a truly talented forger could copy paintings from the pinnacle of an artist's career, not their lesser years. He had come to this conclusion precisely because he had tried to master every field of art in response to Ultima's requests. Even if he had never met the person, the artist's skill could recreate the full power of his glory days, truly akin to cheating. To this Veyron now added his own unleashed power. Ultima, his master, had evolved through the force she received from Rimuru, and by her graces, Veyron had expanded his force as well. Veyron now possessed enough magicules to match up with an awakened demon lord, not just your garden variety one. Wait, what? You even feel like a different person from before. Marco was astonished. Veyron ignored him, instead materializing a sword in his hand with the demon-specific create material skill. It was just an imitation of the blade transformer Jer had, but it had the ultimate gift artist applied to it. There was now no doubt that it performed as close to the real thing as possible. Veyron glanced at Marco. Indeed. There is no underestimating this man, Kondo. But you know. But what? Now that Lady Carrera is setting off to fight him, I fear his fate may be soon at hand. Ha ha ha. Ridiculous. Marco laughed off the nonsensical idea. He could never imagine Kondo being defeated. The two sides stared at each other. There were irreconcilable odds, and so there was no choice but to settle the matter by force. Both sides moved at once. Baika. Goka Tatsu. Gallery fake multi-layered. Blossom flash. Here and now, the forgery had become the real thing. Veyron's 8 sword strikes batted down 5 slashes from his opponent, the remaining 3 amputating both of Marco's arms, before he stopped the tip of the blade right against the nape of his neck. Ah, ah, ah. The intense pain caused Marco to shut off his mimicry. He tried to stop the blood from spraying out, but that wasn't going to happen, now that his arms ended at the elbows. He. I'm not going to kill you. Taking me hostage, then? Oh, goodness no. Veyron went back to his own form as he grinned. I serve Lady Ultima as her butler, and I am willing to do anything in order to please my lady. It wasn't much of an answer to Marco's question, but it did give him an inscrutable fear of what was to come. What are you gonna do to me? He couldn't help but ask. But that reaction already proved he had fallen into Veyron's trap. My lady is quite cruel, he replied. She loves nothing more than the pain expressed by those who dare to oppose her, letting their bodies rot slowly over time, for example, rather than kill them immediately. It is my duty and responsibility to admonish her over it, and yet. I don't want to hear this, Marco thought. But Veyron was heartless. I must admit, I love it as well. In fact, I find nothing more pleasurable than to watch the great and powerful plead pitifully for relief. And that, Veyron was implying, is why you are the best sword possible. Stop. Please, stop. I surrender. In fact, I'll swear to you that I'll never disobey your will again. So. Marco began pleading with Veyron, and nobody could blame him for that. He had never known defeat before in his life, so being put on the defensive like this made him feel vulnerable indeed. There was no denying his solid abilities, but his inner spirit had never received the equivalent training. His ultimate power had only been lent to him. It wasn't something he had mastered. And as a demon among demons, Veyron was an expert at making opponents like that experience true fear. Sorry, my friend. No need to fill your head with that possibility. I refuse. Why? If a war is underway, then we must never accept surrender. Isn't that wonderful? If you were truly that weak, you should have submitted fully from the beginning. Trying to bargain after defeat is simply shameful. The mere idea is impossible for me to consider. But. And it's not wrong of me, is it? After all, it's exactly what you've all done up to now. I don't want to hear any backtalk just because it's our turn. So. Veyron's lips curled, his mouth splitting open until his grin stretched from ear to ear as he laughed maniacally. The display, paired with his gentlemanly demeanor, was like fingernails on a chalkboard to anyone who saw it. It is time for you to take responsibility, and to please Lady Ultima. Now he revealed his true nature. As Ultima's first servant, he was a cruel, brutal, merciless demon. Help me. Help me, Lieutenant Kondo. Marco's cry for help would never reach Kondo. Yes, a very pleasant kind of wail there. But it might disturb the others, so please be quiet for a while. With that, Veyron unceremoniously pulled out Marco's tongue. So Marco's silent voice echoed away in this alternate dimension, cut off from the world we know. As for what fate had in store for him,